Welcome back to Supply Chain Saga. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Courtney Folk, the co-founder and CEO of Renewal Logistics. Together with her husband, Brian Folk, they have successfully established one of the leading fulfillment companies in the fashion and apparel industry. In this episode, Courtney takes us on a deep dive into handling seemingly impossible tasks and shares her insights on what it means to bring relief. Let's dive in. And we are live.
Wow. Fun times.
Yeah, absolutely. Joining me today is Courtney Folk of Renewal Logistics.
Hi, great to be here.
Yeah.
So happy to be here.
Yeah, likewise. I really appreciate you taking the time. You've got you're one of the people I know. I mean, everybody's busy, but you're one of the people I'm like, wow, she's really busy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I need to hire an assistant.
No. I didn't. No apology necessary. I meant that to just, I'm grateful that you gave me the time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Glad to do it.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you introduce yourself? And I know you've done several podcasts, so give me the things that you want to talk about. I think your background, your origin story is just so cool. So how about we start there?
Okay. Well, thank you. So Courtney Folk, Renewal Logistics, we are the fulfillment company for the fashion industry.
I like the tagline.
Thank you. So we help companies that generally it's apparel, but it can really be anything. But, our basic premise is that we, are able to push product out as fast as some of the super large companies, but for apparel companies where there's a lot of complexity, and usually that's so hard to do that they have to keep it internalized to be able to control the quality. So we try to give apparel companies the opportunity to, take the warehousing and fulfillment and distribution off of their balance sheet, which is, like I said, generally that's not really an option for apparel companies because it gets tricky.
It does. High SKUs, high SKU turnover. There's a lot of things. So I think saying that it's complex is kind of putting it lightly.
Yeah. Well, you had asked about my origin story. I don't know how far back you want me to go, but
however far back you want to go. I understand that you went to Charleston College and you guys lived you are in business with your husband, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you guys grew up in the same town?
So went to Charleston Southern. He actually went to USC. I grew up in the middle of the state in a place called Camden, South Carolina.
Okay.
He grew up in Chapin, South Carolina, which is, its claim to fame is where Lake Murray is, which is this super fun, awesome lake in South Carolina. Lots of fun. So we actually met in a singles group at Baptist Church. I'm from the South. Everybody, when you're in your, teens and 20s, you're part of a Sunday school class. And
that was the original dating app, by the way.
Yes, exactly. It totally was. Oh my gosh. And we, there's a whole story there too, but I'll keep it simple. We both kind of knew without knowing each other. And we went on one date, and my husband the next day said that we're going to get married. And I was scared to death of that, but I kind of felt like it was too. And we actually never spent another day apart after that. Like we hung out together every day, and we worked together, and we're together 24/7. And it's just a really fun relationship. Now it has its ups and downs. Like the good times are fantastic. Right. And then the bad times are super tough because you can't get away from it. But, I wouldn't want it any other way. And so, graduated college in Charleston Southern, came back to Columbia, worked for Alltel, which is now Verizon, and was like one of 10 or 15 salespeople that came and went. I was the one that lasted. And the way I lasted was I figured out that our solution was really suited for a particular industry, which was the mechanical contracting industry. And so within the first year I was there, I sold just about every mechanical contracting company in Columbia. And I realized that you hear it now a lot on social media, but like if you niche down, you can really make gain a lot of traction.
Right.
So I thought that was, a good example of how true that really is. And then we got engaged. The next Monday, I went and told my boss that I'm leaving and I'm going to work for the family business. And his parents had 4 small dry cleaning stores. They had a very, very large dry cleaning business and sold it to the Johnson Group. And they got back in it a few years later. And so when we got in, it was still fairly small. They were rebuilding. And within a year of Brian being in the business, it was like the second largest in Columbia again. And then I came in to work on the insurance restoration side, which was basically helping customers who've had house fires get their lives back together after a fire by cleaning all of their clothing and apparel and bed linens and window treatments and rugs and things like that.
So one question I've always you're a very detail-oriented person. So how often do house fires happen? Like how big is that customer set?
It's about a $40 billion industry.
And that's nationwide or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's not huge. But it's, in any given market, there's 2 or 3 companies that do the same thing that we do.
Got it. And so which would indicate that it's popular. I mean, fires happen often enough that, it can support 2 to 3 businesses.
Yeah.
Or at least 2 to 3 for a little bit before, the least performer goes out of business, and then it healthily supports 2.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. So how did so once you kind of, because this is in, which city is this in?
Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay. So this is in Columbia. And how big of a city is Columbia?
The whole state of South Carolina, when we lived there, had about 4 million in population. And Columbia was the 3rd largest city, I think. So I don't know exactly, but that should give you context.
It seems
small,
similar to Oklahoma in that about the same kind of population with 2 primary cities and then a smaller 3rd city. So once you kind of but once you started to really own that market in Columbia for fire restoration stuff, is that something that you can go outside and take from the 2nd largest city and then the 1st largest city? Like, how do you expand, or is that we actually need to physically set up another location?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we found that you can service about a 4-hour radius from one location comfortably and meet the customer SLAs very well. What we did was we looked at the industry and we said, who are the movers and shakers in this business? Who are the ones that we think are built to last? And ServPro, I'm sure you've heard of them. Mm-hmm. We targeted ServPro and we said, you know what, these guys, they have the community, they have the training, they have the marketing, they have it all. So we want to hitch our star to their wagon.
Okay.
And so I just went after all the ServPros, and within so it took 2 years to get that company to a place to where it was really sellable. Like we had so that if we executed on a claim, it was perfect. Execution has always been super important to me. Like, I'm not going to sell somebody something that we're not going to do 100% of what we say we're going to do.
Right.
That's probably kept us smaller than we could have been, but I also feel like we hardly ever lose customers. I've got 20-year relationships. So I just think it's important from an integrity standpoint. But we targeted all the ServPros, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia, and it was literally maybe a year and a half later, and we had them all of them. And it caused a lot of ruffled feathers in the marketplace. But so I think it was 2008. So 5 years into the process, the first 2 or 3 we spent just building the business. And then it was a couple of marketing very hard. Excuse me. But by 2008, we'd actually opened a Georgia, an Atlanta location, closed down all of our retail. We'd sold off what we could sell off. And then the economy crashed. And we were so thankful that we had gotten rid of all of that retail at that point. Wow. Because no one was doing dry cleaning. No one had any money. So long story short, we really became dominant in the Southeast, and we knew, like right now, I could go out tomorrow, open up locations across the U.S. for that business, sell it, and could deliver. But it just seemed very, very capital intensive and training intensive, and maintaining the quality seemed like it would be a challenge. And I just didn't have the skill set at that point to figure out how to actually do that,
Right.
So we started treating it like a lifestyle business at that point, and had a great lifestyle. And then in 2013, we were approached by one of the top 5 apparel companies in the U.S. They had a problem that they could not find anyone else to solve anywhere in the U.S., abroad, anywhere. Basically, they had 300,000 pairs of jeans that were to go to the largest, or one of the largest big box wholesalers, wholesale clubs in the U.S. And on the slow boat coming over, they actually were covered in mold.
Oh, wow.
So, they were packed during the rainy season in Asia, and, so they were going to lose that account, which was like $100 million account, if they didn't figure out a solution to be able to ship these goods on time and in full. And so one of the Asian factory reps that sold the product to our client found us online and was like, "I see you clean mold." And we're like, "We sure do." And he was like, "Well, we've got 300,000 pairs." And we're like, "Is this a joke?" And then he was like, and we were like, "Well, we can do it." And he's like, "Okay, well, how are you going to get these items from their location?" Ours, "Well, we've got trucks. We'll pick them up." "Oh, wait, you have tractor trailers?" "No, we don't."
Got pickups.
Right? Like Econoline vans. And he's like, "It's 9 tractor trailers of jeans." And we were like, wow, I don't think we had an idea or a concept of the scale. And so we were like, "Well, we'll figure it out." And he was like, "Okay, well, meet with me and my client tomorrow morning in Atlanta at 8:00 on Monday. And if you sell them, then you've got the business."
Wow.
And so it was Brian and I, we're these 2 little 34-year-old kids. And we walk into this room, and it's like 18 suits around this huge conference table in this massive building. We didn't know what we were doing there. But, we said, look, we have to flex in our business all the time because we're in the emergency disaster business, and hurricanes come through, and you've got, you went from 1 claim yesterday to 35 claims in a day, and we have to figure out how to make it happen. And I think that those skills will translate here. We have the system, we have the apparel knowledge and expertise, and we want to handle this for you. And they were like, "The reign of the blank company will come down on you and destroy you if you F this up. You have to understand." Like, they were sweating themselves. My husband's over here totally stress sweating. He's like ready to implode. And I'm like, "No, we're going to do this. We can do this. We will do this, and you will be happy at the end." And meanwhile, he's over there texting our warehouse manager, "Okay, here's what's coming. We have to figure this, and this out." And so he's handling the logistics quietly while I'm trying to focus on selling the room.
And this is before you even had a signature on a contract.
Oh yeah, we never had a signature. Our signature on the contract for that was a whiteboard that we took a picture of that said, "This company will pay you these dollars for each unit, and these are the terms." And that's what we. And that project costs like, a lot of money. That if we would have failed on that, it would have probably put us out of business, or maybe not. I think I had done the math before and decided it might really sideline us for quite a long time, but it wouldn't fully kill us. So we were kind of ready to we were okay to take the risk, but we were bored and we needed something new to do. So it was kind of perfect timing. And
yeah, great lifestyles are overrated anyway, right?
We had built our dream house, and we have like 650 acres or 650 feet of lakefront space.
Okay.
And this project came, we did it, we were successful, and we never went back home. Literally, I think we've been back there maybe 15 times in the last 10 years. Like,
wow.
We just never, because we just were so busy after that from this client. And So yeah, they are. Great lifestyles are overrated. Like if you're one of those people and you need like a mental boost all the time, sitting around and looking at the water is fun for a minute, but it's not for us like all the time.
It makes sense. So I've heard you talk about this before, and it's you had such a quiet confidence that you guys could execute that. And this was just for how many? What was the closest you had done to that kind of throughput? Because I think you've said I've heard you say it's about 27,000 units a day.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I don't think you have said yet is that they had to do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh yes, 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
So with that said, 27,000 units a day. What was your previous best day throughput before this contract?
That's a great question. So like our average units per day before this was probably 2,500. Biggest day ever was probably 5,000.
Okay, so 11 times.
Yeah.
No problem. We can do it. I mean, hats off, because the confidence to say that not only can we do it, but we're doing it. We've never come within 11 times of this on a day.
Yep.
So what was the most, obviously aside from the actual feed itself, what was the most challenging aspect that you didn't previously think about?
Well, we learned a lot on that job. So like there was all of this, you're in FBA prep. So, like you have stickers on clothing, you have hang tags, so all that stuff had to come off and be put back on properly. We were dealing with pre-packed cases, which means there was 10 or 12 different sizes and different colors in one case, and they had to be packed a certain way. And the complexity was insane. And so basically what happened was we had a 25,000 square foot building in our neighborhood that we knew of. And our landlord, we had a great relationship with our landlord. And I think the key to being able to do what we did was just relationships. So we just never kind of meet a stranger, and we keep relationships for our whole life. And so we had this great relationship with our landlord. We were like, hey, we need a building immediately. And so we took our key that we had that was a master key for several properties, showed our customer this building, and it was large enough. We had our friends come in from the restoration industry and build racking for us overnight. Literally, wow. We had an agreement on a Monday afternoon. Tuesday morning, they were in there building racks and rails for us. By Wednesday, we actually had a COI, I think. And we had just built relationships with the vendors in our market. We'd never worked with temp workers before. And Tuesday afternoon, we did 7,000 units that day. Wednesday, we had 2 shifts of 200 workers in there, and we hit the number on the second day of production. And so I think in terms of what was a surprise about it, we did a pretty thorough job, even though it was really one call, one meeting. We saw the product, we saw the issue. We tested our process in our building that afternoon, and then we had someone, we kept asking questions, and they ultimately sent someone to just be on site with us to make sure that the processing was going to be to their standard. And we just really leveraged the resources that were available to us.
Absolutely. Right.
A customer knows what they need way better than we are. We're in the business, and yes, we're experts in it, but they're experts in their product, So it was really just leaning on that. And I think, and this was the ghetto in Atlanta. We had prostitutes that were in there, and we had drug dealers, and it was, but I love that, right? That's my heart, serving the underserved. It gave them a job. It gave a lot of people a lot of pride for that 2 weeks, because we told them what was going on, and we told them what this meant to this company, and that they were a part of saving this company's relationship with this number one customer, And so everybody was really juiced. We even had, it also happened over the 4th of July weekend. And so you think no one's going to show up, right?
Right.
What are you going to do? We had a ton of people. We were we're going to do a pizza party on these couple days. And And it was hot. Oh my God. We spent $10,000 in bottled water for that project.
Wow.
It was so hot. But people showed up and it was, they wanted to be a part of something special and they felt like it was special.
That is special. And if you compare, I would never say never, but if you think about like how tight the labor market is today, and you said that was the first time you'd ever worked with temp employees.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to forge, so not only you said, you built everything and it was like you're able to do it because of your relationships, but with your relationships also can be, a reputation is going to precede you. And so getting these temp agencies to even come on and say, all right, we'll send you 200 people and we just expect you're going to pay. that's
Now I can't believe that even happened.
I know.
That was like divine intervention. Like I look at that project a lot and I think that, there was kind of divine intervention all over it. Because you're right. Like, usually it's this contract negotiation process and, but we ran across this girl who'd been calling on our GM for a while. She was we are so the same, and that humility is a huge part of her character and our character. And she just cares about serving people and taking care of people. And we told her the story. Her dad owned the company. And so they were like, we'll take a chance on you. And so they provided a ton of workers. And for them, it was like, they were the ones who really, they didn't have the high quality workers that had been drug tested and screened. Who knows in that case? Like, I'm sure there were people in there that had drugs in their system, honestly, but it didn't matter because we weren't doing anything that was dangerous or, they couldn't cut themselves or, no one was driving a forklift. Like this was all so manual. And we had an inspection process before as they came in the building, they had certain things they were allowed. As they left the building, they were inspected. We had a lot of surveillance. Oh, that was another interesting thing. So security, right? So like we realized after the first day, we really needed to have some really great security in here. Like we were, we'd never worked with a security company. The company that actually did the most of the security for Atlanta during the Olympics, we just happened to call them out of the phone book. They were the ones. And they were like, yeah, we'll be there right now. And they came and they created a perimeter. They like had the whole system for how you manage security. It was like it all just lined up. And then like the owner's sons and, they had this family. They were like, I guess, professional basketball players, but they had this whole family of boys. They were like 6', 7", massive guys. And they were standing around these different posts in this location, looking down over everything. So, it was amazing. The security there was just as good as our building now when we've got tons of cameras and a fob system and, whatever. It was, so it was a little crazy.
That's awesome. So after that, that was a 3-week sprint. I'm sure you went home and slept for 2 days straight. And then all of a sudden, these people are like, okay, you did this. Now, how long was it before everybody else took note and then the floodgates opened of people asking for these impossible, deals?
Yeah, that's, we didn't get 2 days. So what happened was it went to the customer. I keep wanting to say their name, but I really don't want to. No, and they so the wholesaler, the wholesale club received the goods. So what they said was, okay, well, you got it done on time, but now we're sure we're going to end up with these crazy chargebacks, right? Like we're sure that we're going to end up spending more than your bill. It's still going to kill us. So we crossed the first hurdle, but we'll see what happens next. Well, 0 complaints.
Wow.
And we were in the room with these guys when they were talking about it, and you could just see the look on their face, like shock, like their mouths were hanging open whenever this came through. But because of the fact that this was such a big problem for them, and there was so much visibility, when I told you that when we walked in, there were all these very important people that had flown in from all over the world to solve this problem. We just had we made an immediate mark.
Absolutely.
And they were like, we've hated 3PLs. We've tried working with 3PLs before. It's never worked. But you guys are different. And so we want a tight relationship with you. So we're just going to send you anything that we don't want to do in our building. And it like the next day, they had a 1.7 million unit bra rebranding project that all the product had to go to Target, and it had to be, something was wrong with the brand label, and it had to be swapped out. So it was like we didn't have a break at all. And, just continued like that.
Was that first deal profitable for you guys?
It was. Have you ever heard me talk about this before?
No.
That's a whole nother, I don't know how much you want to talk about this. So if I start getting long-winded, you tell me. But
no, this is great.
So here's what was interesting about the profitability component there. We had a negotiated one price and then decided that it wasn't going to work at that price. We were going to lose money. And that was our kind of rookie mistake. That is the one thing we did do wrong in this. And we've really learned about that ever since. But and so the Chinese manufacturer that's not in the U.S. is who was going to pay us. And that was scary in itself. Like, we don't tend to work with people who aren't U.S.-based. And so we had a price agreement. We had to go back on that. We talked to our Chinese friends and said, look, it's just not going to work at this price. We've, $10,000 in water, right? Like, you wouldn't believe all the other things that had gone on at the same time. And so they were like, well, we agreed to that price. And I said, well, we're going to shut our doors then. And so we had to get our customer involved. We had to get our main client who bought the jeans involved. And the same guy that told us that X company is going to rain down fire on you if you F it up, went to them and said, you're going to pay them what they effing want to get paid. You caused this problem for us. It could kill a part of our business. You're going to pay them. And so we had this huge negotiation process. And in that process, right, so like we found out later that this guy was an accountant as well as an attorney that we were dealing with. We didn't know that at the time.
Your Chinese counterpart or
yes.
Or the guy who speaks in hyperbole?
The Chinese counterpart.
Okay.
And so we kept telling him we have to go up on our price, and he kept trying to whittle our price down. I finally said, Brian, who's my husband, I said, we're out of our depth. We can't negotiate with these guys. We're going to have to call in reinforcements. And I was like, I'm going to call my stepdad. My stepdad was a managing partner for Ernst & Young in New York and New Jersey. So I called them on like whatever day it was, 5:00 in the afternoon. And they were like, all right, we'll get in the car and come on down. So then they were there the next morning at 8 a.m. So rather than being on the floor supervising production, making sure this is going right, Brian, I, and my stepdad, Mike, and these 3 Chinese folks were sitting in a room hashing out these numbers. And as soon as we got an agreement from them, which it took like 15 minutes to get that agreement, like my stepdad killed it, right? Like, he's the best. He's like, look, I don't care what the cost factor is. It's the value of what you're providing over time. And they're taking a financial risk. And there's, there's a cost, they need to get paid for that too. And so, they're there for the rest of that day. They load up the next morning and leave. The next morning, the Chinese folks are like, no, we're not paying that. So that's when our friend from our customer's office who speaks in hyperbole had to go set them straight. So at that point, they agreed to it. And then a couple weeks after we did the project, they paid it. So it was high stakes and high adrenaline for 2 weeks.
So now you've got, not the whole world, but the whole world is, your whole world is watching, like, after you've done this deal, and they say, okay, look, we're giving you everything we can, which is a scary thing anyway. If you hadn't have just done this 300,000, gene situation, it's like now you've got lots of other considerations. You've got space considerations. You've got all these sorts of things. How do you grow to it? So what do the next couple of years look like for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we started doing all of these repricing, all of these, kitting projects. We ultimately took over a lease for that space that I had told you about that we'd gotten on a whim. A few months after that, we realized that it just wasn't sustainable to be working out of 2 different locations. 3. We had our South Carolina location as well. So we started shopping properties. We found a building that had that was like 50,000 square feet. We went from 10,000 square feet where we were before we did this project to overnight 50,000 square feet, and which was a big jump for us at the time. And the building had room to grow. It had 85,000 total square feet. So we moved into that property 2 or 3 months after we started this relationship with this client. And then Brian, my husband, is like a genius when it comes to certain things, like mechanically and process. He's just so smart. And so he actually transferred and moved all of the equipment from our dry cleaning facility in Atlanta. It's, a couple $1 million worth of equipment, and set it all up himself, organized it, and had a couple people come in and pipe it. But he did most of the engineering on that location. And then, so it's in one corner. The rest of it was production space for these projects and holding space for the product before and after it was complete. And we did that for a long time. Till 2018. And we loved it. Like, it was close to our house. It was just simple. We always had warm hearts because we were helping all these people who really needed it, and seeing them grow as individuals was just so cool. And, anyway, so that's what we did for a long time. And then our client was like, look, we've been asking you for a long time to put a facility right next to ours, and now we're not asking anymore. We're telling you. And we're like, oh, you know what? That's a great idea. We were just thinking about doing that.
We were coming here to tell you.
Yeah. And so they wanted to close down their returns location. So they were going through kind of a change management process in their business, where they wanted to consolidate locations and get into better labor markets. And they were behind in volume on their returns management, and also they had a dying labor pool. It was like in the middle of the country where there's no workers. The building was old. They wanted to just sell it instead of having to upfit it. And the other big thing that moving it into our business rather than them handling themselves was that it was no longer on their bottom line, right? So they didn't have they didn't have a long-term liability. It was now they were paying a unit price. Every time they had a return that came through, it was a certain amount. And so they could manage their costs a lot more effectively. So we started with returns, but we said, look, the cost of the building that you're looking for us to move into, these are really nice buildings. These are high-class buildings, right?
Yeah.
We weren't in we have a very nice building, but it was in a lower area. So anyway, we were like, for us to be able to support this cost, we're going to have to find a lot of other things we can do for you that go beyond just returns. So what else do you have in your building that's a pain point? And they were like, well, we have 3 different temp agencies that are supposed to be managed by one, but it's not really working out very well. And I said, well, why don't you just let us do all of that? Any work that you were going to have temp workers do in your building, just send it to us. We're right next door. We can, shuttle it back and forth for you. All you have to do is get it to the dock. We can handle it from there. And that's been our arrangement, and it's been a great arrangement. So we have kind of a unit volume per week that we've got an agreement on, and we're here for them when they have really, really busy times. They ship out a tremendous amount to retail stores, so they've got a lot of wholesale programs, and so so we're really busy, pre-peak season. And then if we have slow times, it's not a big deal because most of our labor base is temp workers. But for the most part, we just make sure we have a dollar amount that covers our cost and hits our profit target that we told them, look, for us to come over here, we got to get paid.
Sure.
We're not going to do it for free. We love you, but we have to be able to make a decent profit off of this to make it make sense. And so it's been one of those relationships where, they're honest with us about what their needs are. We're honest with them, and we try really hard to keep our cost aligned with what it would be in their building so that it's never a situation where it's actually costing them money to do business with us.
Right. But almost like your stepfather was saying, it's like, okay, there's also a premium associated with them taking this kind of a risk. there's a premium associated with you making it easy and turnkey for them as well. There has to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, they can say, well, look, we know what it's consistently going to cost us, but we also, they don't have to go through the process of figuring out what all of those little attributable costs are to their returns program because it's just a very clean line item.
Yep, 100%.
Yep. That's interesting. So so clearly they've been one of your biggest clients, if not your biggest client. Have you diversified or has the word gotten out in the apparel industry that you guys are the guys?
Yeah, it has. So, and it's funny, like people leave their company and go somewhere else. And then the next day we get calls, and it's not even just apparel. Like it's any company that needs a lot of handling, like value-added services. Like we've got one of the largest companies that sells into Walmart for craft supplies. They do like 12 programs a year where they do end cap displays. And it's like these huge programs. It's like 1.7 million units per program has to be kitted and shipped out. And we do all of the kitting and the shipping to the Walmarts for them. And so, that's a great example. Carter's is a baby clothes company that's here in Georgia. We've got an awesome relationship with them. A lot of other apparel companies that are kind of those large global brands that need this type of distribution support. We work with those guys, a lot of those, very often. We do still need to, so when COVID hit, our largest client sold off some of their brands and we were like, and we had gotten that business too, to a point where it was like a lifestyle brand, right? Like, we didn't really have to be that involved anymore. So we were pretty comfortable for a while with that. And but when COVID hit, we realized that we really had to start really making efforts to change our model just a little bit. Like we're providing a service that companies need. I don't think that's ever going to change. But you never know if someone can get bought or sold and everything can change immediately. And so we started looking at, how do we start providing solutions and services that will help medium-sized companies and small companies. And that's when we really realized that, fulfillment for apparel companies is something that most other big 3PLs don't want. And it just doesn't necessarily go that well. So wholesale fulfillment's easy, but the B2C and the store replenishment, that stuff is very hard for traditional 3PLs to do because it takes up 3 to 4 times the space that a normal, you're dealing with. So the shirt you're wearing probably comes in 4 different sizes, right? Or maybe 10 if it's a woven.
Right.
So for that one item to sell to the masses, you've got 10 different SKU pick locations rather than one. And when you're trying to push out a lot of volume during peak season, all of the systems that work really well for companies who have small SKU density, you can have Keurig coffee pots and all the different types of coffee in a line, and you can just go straight down a line and pick that very easily if you only have 10 SKUs. If you've got 2,500 SKUs, the whole system changes, right? So we really looked at that, and we looked at, we've got a customer right now. They have, they came to us because they needed a solution for returns refurbishment. They were a $500 or so price point customer, and people will buy, 4 dresses in different sizes for prom. There's a 6-week peak season for that. And if you're going to buy 4 units, then all of a sudden, we did the math on it. If it was taking their current vendor 10 days to get that back into stock, they were buying 25% more product than they actually needed for the same sales.
Oh, wow.
So huge amount of money there, and also lost sales, right? Like if you're only buying 2 or 3 of a SKU and someone's, they're sitting in a return pile somewhere.
And that 10 days, just sorry to cut you off, but just for clarification, that 10 days is from the time they put it in their shopping cart and click purchase, shipping, try it on, ship it back. You're already at potentially 6 or 8 days, right?
Actually then 16 to 18 days, because it was 10 days from when it was received is how long their vendor was taking to get it back in stock.
Okay.
And that's because, if you've tried something on, you have to refold it. Never looks factory fresh again. You have to inspect it. I got a dress the other day that came from Amazon and it had a big grease stain on the front.
Yeah. So you're 2.5 weeks out of a 6-week period. And that's if the customer buys it on day one of the 6-week period.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, please.
No, and so like our special offering to that customer is we've got this big dry cleaning business, right? So we're the largest restoration dry cleaning company in the U.S. still. That's not like a franchise. So we've got this big dry cleaning location with all this capacity. So they were having like 5% of their returns were actually damaged to the point they couldn't be sold again. So there's huge money in this returns process for them. And so we have the ability to get it back to factory fresh by either dry cleaning it if needed or just steaming it, but knowing how to fold it the right way. We also have alterations, people on staff, so we can actually fix any loose threads or hems that have come out or whatever the case may be. So, for them, those two things translated into an extra 7% profit margin. So if they were at 15%, they're now at 22%.
Which is massive.
Yeah. That's, I think, so to us, we are always looking at our number one core value is bring relief. So we're not a good fit for you if we're just doing the same thing that you can find someone down the street to do. We want to be invested in our customer success. We want to see that we're actually bringing them relief. And we talk about that on the floor to our workers every day. It is, and our whole concept behind bringing relief is we're bringing relief to our customers. Our customers are bringing relief to us. We take care of them. They pay us on time. Yep. And so we have conversations like that with our customers too. We're going to go all in for you, but you have to go all in for us too. This has to be a real relationship. And same thing, so as an employee, my employees, their job is to bring relief to me. I'm not going to hire you unless you're actually doing something that's really beneficial for my company. And at the same time, I'm here to bring relief to you. I'm here to be a good manager to you. Make sure you have the tools and the training you need to be successful. Make sure that your environment is good and that the culture here is solid and you're happy to come to work every day. So, that bring-in relief concept is really important to us. So, but we saw in the apparel space that there's just this huge total addressable market that no one wanted to touch because it was really hard. And, we could be a complete solution for these companies. And so we're still fairly early in getting the word out. And that's why you're talking about, you've seen me a lot on a lot of podcasts and just putting ourselves out there a lot more. That's why, because we're so excited about...
You're evangelizing.
Yeah. And I just think, if we could do that for every apparel company that really had that need, what else could they do with that money? What else? How big could their business grow if they had that much extra fuel to put back in the fire? So I just think it's really fun. It's fun to be needed and to really do something that matters to a customer. You're not just moving a widget from one place to another. You're not moving it from one rack to a truck and nobody cares.
Yep.
And then that's the price game, right? But if I'm providing millions and millions and millions of dollars in value and I'm asking for 10 cents more a unit than the other guys, no one's ever going to question my extra 10 cents a unit. So, I have enough I can reinvest to make the culture awesome and put into new training programs. And, and one thing we didn't talk about is, so I told you the story about how we said yes to that jean job. Well, the reason we felt comfortable saying yes to that jean job is because we'd just gone through a year of crazy dramatic trauma. Our son was born and we had no idea it was coming, but he started having seizures. He had 100 seizures a day.
Oh my gosh.
We had to sign a DNR. We had to fly him, medevac him to hospitals. It was so scary for so long and it was just so hard, right? And We actually got him on the ketogenic diet, and it changed his life. He went from having all those seizures to no seizures overnight. It was like a miracle. It was like, I say all the time, the Lord kisses us on the cheek, and I really kind of do believe that sometimes. But we had just gone through this crazy drama, and it was like at that point, nothing was ever going to be that hard again. So this idea of doing all this really hard stuff, if our prior selves before this would have happened, never would have said yes to that because our risk tolerance was so low because we'd not gone through this. But at this point, we were finished with all this adrenaline. We'd gone through this negative adrenaline, and now we were looking for some positive adrenaline because we'd gotten used to it. And we were like, well, if we can deal with that, we can definitely deal with this. Nothing's ever going to be that hard again. So,
well, so a couple of points I want to address here. First of all, your risk tolerance is, no entrepreneur's risk tolerance is low. I mean, from that perspective. But what your risk tolerance is, post that situation versus pre that situation, I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
But just the courage to go out there and start a business, take a chance on yourself is like that. That's most people look at that and they can't imagine. So I think you had a high risk tolerance, but now you've got a really high risk tolerance.
Yeah, maybe so. I think you're right.
And the other thing, I've heard a lot of people, long before I've done the podcast, I've read a lot of people's, mottos and core value and things like that. And this is the first time I've ever heard bring relief. And I really like it because of the symbiotic nature it represents of like everybody basically making, coming together to make the pie larger. It's a very thoughtful core value, I think.
Thank you.
So it's very cool. So this is an incredible story.
Thank you.
This has been incredible. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So you're dealing in all these returns, and what are some of your thoughts related to, because a lot of our issues in logistics that we're fixing, especially as it comes to the returns piece of it, is they would be solved if people just bought a little bit more thoughtfully, or if we didn't consume quite as much. There's the environmental aspect or the output of, we're putting all these resources to work on things that we buy and then end up in a landfill, that kind of thing. I believe that, the more sophisticated returns programs, refurbishment programs, renewal programs that we've got out there, I think that's really doing probably the most to alleviate, kind of our impact. Where, the concept of ESG has been very politicized, and taking the political aspect out of it, how much of the manufacturers and the customers are you working with are kind of focusing on, basically having, doing more with less and that kind of thing?
That's a great question. So I think the company that really does it the best, you never hear them talking about it. And the only way I know about it is because of some friends in design school that were telling me about it. But Carter's, the baby clothes company, all of their product is in one fabric. So, and it's easy for them because they're babies, and babies don't say that they look fat in an outfit. So, it's all about comfort, right?
Right.
But like literally, that one fabric they buy in bulk, and then they print small runs for each design. Their designs are pretty consistent. And so if they have, so they can be very precise about the flow of their goods. I think that's a great example of someone who's doing it really smart. Another company that does it really smart, Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger do it really, really, really smart. So I've never seen a company have as good of an omni approach as they do. So they have multiple channels, right? They have their own stores. They have, partner stores, like partner retailers. They have e-com. They have Amazon. And they bring in goods. They bring in goods in like a universally packaged good. And so there's either a store destination, so it needs to be on a hanger, or there's like a packaged destination, like it's going to be shipped through e-com. But they are always looking at their what's selling best through which channel. And as soon as they can see they've got fire in one channel, they're converting product. So maybe they thought they were going to sell a ton of this product in a store, but they found out it's sold a lot better online. They're moving that product through the channels to sell online, and it's daily. They're looking at that dynamic shift daily. And I think that's a company that the smaller companies, they're playing 4D chess when everyone else is playing checkers from that standpoint. And that's where, yes, you can definitely improve your returns process if you buy less and you buy smarter, but really getting rid of what you have is important. And like being able to move it in a way where you're not losing money. Like they don't send everything through TJ Maxx. I think a lot of the smaller brands look at it like, okay, if it doesn't sell, I'm going to put it in a trunk show or I'm going to sell it on, whatever. It doesn't have to be that way if you can be really thoughtful about, watching your inventory every day and looking at where can you actually, what channel is selling best and how do you add more to that. So I think that's a neat story.
It's almost like load shifting. So you see the one channel like really catches, then it's like you just start adding your resources to like really fuel the success of that channel.
Yes, 100%.
So are they, for instance, let's say they've sent 20% of their inventory to their own personal stores or their privately held stores, and then the e-com section starts going bonkers. Are they then repurposing and starting to kind of turn their own personal or their personal stores, their private stores, into fulfillment centers as well? So they'll just start fulfilling directly from the store. Is that part of how they're doing that?
I don't know enough about what happens in their retail environments. I do think a lot of companies do have some capacity for that, but I think what they do is they are very careful to, they ship a few units to each store of each, so they have like one major push of wholesale to go to the stores, and then they do fulfillment, like replenishment regularly to them. So they have a few distribution centers that are their big hubs, and most of the product that goes out is all done from their hubs. I just don't have enough visibility into their storefronts. What I'm seeing a lot of stores do, though, that's really interesting. Have you seen the 2D barcode? So a lot of companies are really kind of getting, like Puma has this really cool thing they're doing where if you scan a 2D barcode inside their store, you get a different read than if it's inside of another store. So they have all this geofencing happening. And they have all of their retail stores applying those 2D barcodes rather than having that done at the distribution center, or even they are getting some of it done at the source in their factories, wherever their factories are. But that's how they're utilizing their store employees, is waiting for the product to actually arrive there and then putting the 2D barcodes on it when needed. But most companies do have, most of their employees in retail stores are set up to be able to do the whole, pushing goods from a store to a customer. I think it's SAP that, honestly, I don't want to start talking about this because I don't think I have enough knowledge about it and I'm going to end up saying something wrong.
No, totally.
But it's all systems driven.
Yeah.
If they can do that or not.
Have you ever looked at what Patagonia does with, they do a lot of, they'll pull back a lot of used items. They'll resell items. They've got a secondary marketplace that they've pushed for a long time.
Recommerce.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a lot of sustainability programs that these large companies are doing. So in that case, and there's several other companies that are also doing that as well. Levi's is doing that. Madewell has a thing where if you send in a pair of jeans, if you just bring them a pair of jeans, they'll give you a $10 credit to your next pair that you buy. And then they have, if they can be sold again, they'll put them on a Recommerce site. If they can't, they'll actually be turned into insulation for homes for Habitat for Humanity.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool use cases that are happening for that. And but in terms of Recommerce, what these companies are finding is really cool. Man, the best case study on this is actually not an apparel brand. It's Best Buy.
Okay.
Best Buy has turned their Recommerce program into a strategic weapon. Like, it's amazing what they've done. But they found that, so they've opened up a bunch of outlets and they're reselling their own product that was returns. And they found that actually, I think it was like 10 or 15% of their customers that are coming there are brand new customers that have never bought from them otherwise. And so all these companies have been so worried about diluting their value and
it's two separate customers.
Exactly.
The person that's buying new is not typically the same person that's buying used.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so cool. And and it gives people access, right? Like, if you're a high value brand and Tory Burch, let's say you bought a pair of Tory Burch shoes, or you've always wanted to buy a pair of $350 Tory Burch shoes.
Okay.
And, having a Recommerce program, all of a sudden, maybe it's not perfect. Maybe that's why you're getting it for $100. But all of a sudden, these people who have always wanted to aspire to own these products now do. And then they love it. And then they're willing to put the money out there for the $350 item, the next time around. So I think there's a tremendous amount of value to it if it's done right. Those programs they do require a lot more for setup. Like, you have to have a really solid disposition program on the backside. So, like, you receive the returns, then you sort them based on, can it be sold as new? Does it have to be, refolded? Does it need any cleaning? And then what category is it going to go in based on these things? Like, what level of damage does it have? You have to kind of grade it. So then you have to have some program or kind of like algorithm, even though it's usually done by hand a lot of times, but some system for determining how many dollars can you put back into this item to get it refurbished so that it can be sold again.
Right.
So you can't spend $10 on a $25 item, right? But you can spend $10 on a $200 item.
Sure.
So, and having a system for that so that a judgment call doesn't have to be made every time that someone receives a return.
Yeah.
Those are very cool programs. And I think that they have, with the economy falling off, a lot of those programs have actually been cut by not necessarily Recommerce programs, but like sustainability programs. A lot of them with apparel companies have been cut because they just don't have the money for it.
Right.
But I think once things level out again, that's going to be the next big thing, because apparel is one of the top offenders when it comes to environmental damage. Like, you look at statistics on the amount of wastewater that comes from denim, it's incredible. And so, like, you were asking about what can you do at the source to kind of make smarter decisions. Well, people are doing a lot of printing now, digital printing for the coloration of denim rather than the, dyeing process that they've done before. So there's a lot of cool new technology that's happening in that space. And
have you had any experience with those?
Yeah, we run the sustainability programs for some of the largest, a couple, it was 5 or 6 of the largest brands that are in the U.S. And that's been really interesting. It's been not only looking at how can they resell those goods, but also what tweaks can be made. So I heard someone say, if something didn't sell, figure out why it wasn't cool and fix that.
Okay.
And, maybe it's adding some lace. Maybe it's, making an alteration to the silhouette.
And what I think is also a little bit interesting is we're also starting to get to Gen Zs now kind of growing into their buying power, their buying capacity. And so the trends that we've come to know and love with all the millennials and, before that, Gen Xers and Generation Y and whatnot, it's I guess Generation Y is our millennials, I think. Anyway.
I have no idea.
I might have totally messed that up. Anyway, but millennials have held for the last several years, most of the buying capacity, and then as that starts to come up with Gen Z, who knows how they're going to buy? I mean, I think as I see articles, I'm not an expert on it or anything like that. I'll see articles where it's like their buying behavior is much different. So that will also shape how these companies kind of approach the future. Anyway.
Yeah. So what I heard recently I did an interview with the founder of, what is the name of that bar soap they use for your hair? Dry Bar? Is it? No, it's not Dry Bar. Her name's Nora. God, I wish I could remember. I'll have to let you know. You can put it in the fact check or whatever. But she said that the 12-year-old girls are the ones that are now, driving the economy. And they're the ones to watch, and at least in her product category. But, I think that going back to the Recommerce, like your social story, why people should buy from you, that is where it's all at, don't you think? I mean, It's all about responsibility. It's all about doing the right thing. And so those Recommerce programs give you that social story. And but it's also, how do you treat your people? And, how are you just being mindful of every element in your business?
Right.
So
if you were going to give some advice to, some of the smaller and medium-sized apparel companies and companies that require a lot of the type of work that you guys specialize in, this value-add service and that kind of a thing, what are some of the things that you would really wish that every great customer came in with the knowledge of?
That's a great question.
It's a big one. So, I mean, you can focus on it however you wish. I should have been a little bit more precise in that one.
No, it's a great question. I think it's just a matter of being self-aware, right? Like, so if you have a lot of SKUs and you are looking for the right fit, be number one, be in a right size 3PL. So, a lot of times companies think it's a badge of honor to be with these huge global companies, like to be in their buildings. But really what happens is a lot of times they get in there and then they are deprioritized. Like, I have a lot of customers that will be like, we were deprioritized in December for peak, and we finally were able in a place where we could make money. And it didn't work because our products were too complicated for them to build a really efficient flow to get them out the door. And, there's so many 3PLs out there. Pick one that has the right values. Pick one that has the right product mix and the right type of focus. Like, if you are, if you're all about efficiency and automation, that's like, the products that are best for those are the ones that are square and tiny and, fit in a bread basket because they are very easy to convey from one place to another. Products that don't fit within that, that idea or that concept, a super automated facility is not for you, right? I think it's just really kind of having a true understanding of what your handling is going to require. And then, like, okay, I have an apparel brand that was at another 3PL, and she was like, I just sent my stuff in to them. I'm so excited. I had just met her at this point, and I was like, what do you like about them? And she's like, well, I just really like that I don't have to handle it anymore. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, that's great.
Good luck with that.
And then 2 months later, she's texting me at 11 o'clock at night. And she's like, can you please help me? I sent my stuff in. It's not going well. They double shipped orders to my wholesale account. So now I don't have enough product to be able to ship to my B2C customers. So we're out of stock. And they're telling me it's my fault. They're, she used the term mansplaining. She's like, it's the 60-year-old guy is like, well, we've been in business for 30 years doing this. And she's like, well, I don't care. When it was being done out of my basement, it was going out right. So I think from a values perspective, making sure it's almost like a marriage. Like, this is one of the most important decisions that a company can make is who's handling their product, because it's, we're filling a customer's brand promise, right?
Yeah.
And so another facility down the street, they were private equity backed, and they were selling everything at a super low price that was like way below market. Do your numbers. Like, if someone's giving you a price that's too low, like, the going rate for labor, if the number is too low and what you're being offered, then they're being supported by more capital from someone else. And what happens when that capital runs out? Like pick a sustainable, like solid, just like a business that really runs by the fundamentals.
Right.
Go into the facility, look and see what the morale looks like. Are people happy there? How clean is the building? A lot of that's like easy if you were here, but it's also sometimes people aren't going to make the decision to go check the place out.
Right.
And it's worth it I think it's worth it to spend the money to do that.
Oh, I think it's definitely worth it. And what I find interesting is that you have to tour a couple warehouses before you realize what's a clean warehouse versus what's a not clean warehouse. Because I've walked into warehouses that are returns warehouses where I'm like, wow, this is incredibly clean. But if that were just a firsthand container to distribute, to pallet to shelf and then out, it would look like an absolute mess. So it's like, I feel like, the more warehouses I get to walk around, the better context I have for it. And, I think it's customers are going to get a great feel, but like to your point, you have to be on the ground. You have to go out there and do a walk around. Another thing, commenting on your friend that reached out at 11 p.m., you get to a place where it's like when you go from your basement to working with somebody who's a 3PL or somebody, a logistics business, managing that is a different skill set. And it's never it's never just going to be like, oh yeah, set it and forget it. It just doesn't happen. And one of the things, I would like to add to what you were saying earlier is automation. The more exceptions you have, the less likely it's going to be that automation is going to be your answer.
Yes. Yeah. Great way to sum that up.
Automation wants consistency no matter what. Your manufacturer better be hitting the right carton labels, the right, everything has to be perfect. So the more exceptions, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to really have a good experience with automation.
And you just hit on something else too that kind of, so in the supply chain process, so the labels have to be right for it to work in your 3PL to get it out the door to your customers, right? Well, labels also have to be in the right place when it leaves your 3PL's doors and goes to your retailer's 3PL's doors or their distribution centers. Mm-hmm. So most of those operations, like Kohl's, for instance, they have a cross-dock operation where all the product that comes in is on a conveyor and it's scanned in boxes because they're buying in bulk. They're not buying singles. And if a case label is off or the case label has a wrinkle in it and it can't be scanned, that's an $800 chargeback for a customer, And there's grades, right? So like if you've never failed at any of these before, you're going to be an A player. But if you're a D player, that means they're inspecting more and your chargebacks are more expensive. And so, like going to the value-added services piece and like how with certain businesses require more of that than others, right? So, but the consistency and making sure that stuff is done right is important because if not, then like I was saying, you're on a scale, and as long as you stay A, you're not paying that much, and you have a small amount. So like if you're an A player, I think it's like 0.5% is ever inspected. If you're a D player, I think it's something like 3% is inspected. So you've had a 6x increase of your inspection, and so it's just very important for companies to stay at that highest level as possible, and that's another place where it can really break you because a lot of 3PLs do. So we specialize in value-added services, but even ones that don't specialize in value-added services still have to do some of it, right? So like they still have to put labels on boxes. They still have to take items out and put labels on poly bags sometimes or add hang tags or whatever. If that's not done right, if it's a brand new relationship, let's say someone is going and putting product in Dillard's for the first time, and it doesn't go well and they're not able to sell that product, they're not going to get a repeat order. So it's bad for that. But also if you think about it, like let's say that Dillard's buys 1 million units from Calvin Klein and they come through and 30% of those units have a problem. They have like the hang tag doesn't match the size or tag on the hanger or something. Okay. So every item has to be taken off a hanger and put on one that is the right sized hanger. So like it says medium on the hang tag and it says extra large on the actual hanger. you're talking about days of time where that's not going into a store, and all of a sudden, and they're so careful with their volumes at these stores to where all of a sudden they have dead space in their stores because they're not selling product and they're losing sales. So it's a huge like cycle, and like you have to, like understanding where you fit in that and the why of why all these customers or these retailers that you're selling to are asking for things to be done that way, I think is really important.
And if they recognize that 30%, let's say 30% to your example is what's wrong, they're not going to go through and sort through and find the 30%. They're just going to pull everything and send it back.
Yep.
Yeah. So, for any smaller brand thinking about this, I mean, it's like that means that you now have to pay 100% of the cost for inspection. Not just, it's not just a 30% cost to go and re-inspect 30 of every 100 pairs of, shirts or whatever it may be. You're actually going to have to pay your 3PL or your partner, your value add service partner to basically go through, inspect every single one of them. And then additionally, get the charge back of relationship damage,
opportunity cost,
cost, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the stakes are very, very high. So what would you, so one of the things that we get a request for apparel, and most of the time we turn them down because we're just not set up for it. And what it is we'll have somebody come in and they'll say, well, we've got, 750 SKUs, but it's only about 200 pallets worth of goods. We're like, we're not doing 3 SKUs per pallet, 4 SKUs per pallet, whatever it is. And it's never evenly split like that. It's usually like there are 20 pallets that are single SKU pallets, and then the rest 180 of them are
mixed SKU.
Yeah, massive mixed SKU pallets. So in those sorts of situations, I think finding the right partner who is set up to do that, to really deal with that, because if I take that business, we're setting ourselves up for disaster and failure probably, because the amount you have to sort through a particular pallet just to find, the SKU that you're going to need is going to be at the very back of the pallet. You have to pull it out, and it's at the bottom box, and that's not an efficient picking operation. So, what are some tips that you would give brands that have kind of that really high complexity SKUs and maybe not, they're not taking up a pallet per SKU type of thing?
Yep. So, you're right. Most 3PLs don't want that business for the exact thing you said. And like even 750 with 200 pallets, that's a lot. Like that's a lot of depth per SKU. Usually it's like a few boxes per SKU. So, like our operation's going to be set up completely different than yours. You're going to have, a few guys who can pull pallets off a truck and locate them. We have to have a team of people who, once the pallet's off the truck, we have to break the pallet down. Then we have to run it to the different locations, completely different setup. And I think, I just don't like selling myself. I think I should, I hate thinking about these things and feeling like it's a commercial and like a plug. So like, how do I say this without being like, well, you should call me but the truth is you should find someone who has an apparel background and who works with apparel a lot, because their facility is going to be set up differently. Not only are you going to have a different, employee mix, but you're going to have bookcases. You're not going to have pallet locations. You're going to have pick locations, small, medium, and large. And you're going to have, you're going to have flow racking so that you're not having to do replenishment as often, moving product from a pallet to a pick location. There's a lot of there's just a completely different setup that's required. And it's usually more expensive. It's usually not going to be, as cheap as the cheapest item where you can use automation. I'm trying to think what else would be a really big thing that someone would, do you have relationships with like GS1? Are you familiar with GS1 at all?
Mm-hmm. I don't have any relationships with them, but I know who GS1 is. The SKU, it's the official SKU company.
Yeah,
UPC,
exactly.
UPC company.
Yeah, the barcodes. And they provide a lot of like standardization. And so like we have a really tight relationship with them. And so companies that, don't have, a lot of times product will come over and it'll be like the style color, but it's not the size. And so then you have to like, okay, who's going to come up with the barcodes for this? Are you providing those or are we providing those? Do you need us to assign SKUs? Like there's a lot of like hand holding that happens with apparel companies that as you get larger, those things aren't as needed, but certainly in the mid-market and the smaller, you have a lot of that.
If you ever want to be shocked, go and look at what it costs to buy a small number of SKUs from GS1.
Oh, yeah.
I remember, so the way I got started was we started as FBA sellers ourselves.
Oh, okay.
And so we were doing e-commerce and I looked at, buying 10 or 100 SKUs, whatever it was. And I couldn't believe it was, over $1,000 or hundreds of dollars. And then I went to one of the, usbarcode.com and you get, 100 for $19.99 and you're like, yeah, I'm going to go with that one. But, when you want to, we never anticipated on, we never expected to sell in Target. We never expected to sell into anywhere that was going to require GS1 SKUs. So we were able to get away with that.
Yeah. And that's so like if you're selling to specialty stores and boutiques and smaller operations, you can do that all day long, every day. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of like, you can't reuse the same SKU in 3 years. It's got, like there's so many things that are tricky about working with the large companies. But, if you can, I think if, so brands have to make a decision on whether they're going to sell to those large companies or if they're going to stay with the small companies. If you stay with the small companies, you're dealing with, maybe 100 units per order, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's more like 8 to 25, where if you're selling to the large ones, you're selling thousands, right? So like you can 10x your opportunity, 100x your opportunity. But there are more risk involved. And every time that you make a strategic move that's an error, it's going to cost on that side. So it's extremely important to have people who can walk you through that process, not just 3PLs that have an understanding of what those companies need, but also agents and, at the factory level, you really have to have your game in order. You have to really have that detail down. And, we've taken over programs for companies where they internally were handling their own value-added services and, they were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in chargebacks. And we were able to bring that to just a few thousand, and like take them from an F. We took one company from an F to a B in 6 months. But those companies have the money to spend on that kind of stuff. If you're a new company or a medium-sized company and you're really just trying to get into that big box retail game, it's really, I just can't stress enough how important it is to have people who have been there before and done it, who can walk you through it. Because
that could absolutely just crater your business if you step off on the wrong foot. And everybody might start at an A, but you quickly find yourself at a C, and then you realize that you're not equipped to play the game anymore. Yep. So I think frankly, that's the biggest reason why when going and launching and saying, hey, these are my aspirations, I want to go into these large companies, you better really find a partner that knows what they're doing and already look, don't get me wrong. If I had a high priority client come in and they said, look, this is where we're selling, I would I'd go to Dillard's or whoever it may be, and I would read line by line every single word about their retail compliance. But it's a whole lot better if you can find that partner that's like, oh yeah, well yeah, in this paragraph there's this, and we make sure you have to do this. What's your solution for this? It's like the people that can ask the questions, not figuring it out together, which I can appreciate. Look, because I've figured it out together with my clients in a lot of cases, but there's just kind of a chicken or the egg situation, because sometimes when you're brand new, you don't get the opportunities to talk to the partners that know what they're doing. But to the extent that you can, really get out there and try to find that person that knows exactly who's been there, as you said.
Yeah, I bet for you and your FBA prep business that you have the language that or not the language, but the knowledge that you gain from helping one customer, you can immediately and directly apply it to every other customer
Yes.
So it's compounding knowledge over time. Yeah. And you're right. Like if you're a really tiny company, you're going to have a harder time with that. But, I just think, in cases like that, like just knowing which one of those large companies, like for instance, Dillard's, right? So here's why I love Dillard's. They will bring in a new brand and they'll get chargebacks. But if they prove that if they prove they can improve and they prove they fix those mistakes, they won't actually make them pay it.
Okay.
So like, how nice is that, right? Like they just have like this values-driven business that is just very much about family and like their employees, they've got so many employees that are like 30, 40 years have been there. So like they just have, it's not just about making money. It's about really kind of doing the right thing and being great partners. And so that's a great place for someone to start. That's a small brand that wants to get into a big box, you know?
Kind of like Uline. Like Uline has those family values and the way they treat their employees as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, I don't think they're quite as forgiving with the people. I think they do a lot of their own vending, so it's not a great comparison. But as soon as you said like the family values, it made me think of Uline.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to go back and research them.
Yeah, they're a pretty interesting company. So kind of as we start to wrap up here, it's been about 10 years since the big break with the jeans.
Yeah.
Knowing where you're at today, what would you go back and visit your 2013 yourself and say? What advice would you give?
That's a great question. I think I would say maybe there's a couple things. I don't think I really valued a network as much as I do now. I think that's one thing that has just allowed us to grow exponentially recently. So I would say focus more on the network, not just the moving parts of the company and building an internal business. But, like don't be afraid to be on the radar because we always wanted to stay under the radar for whatever reason. And then the other thing I would say is that like, listen to other people's advice, but don't take it to heart, right? Like, so we, for a long time, never wanted to get into fulfillment because we heard, it's got to be, you got to do it this way. And it's got to be, you've got to spend, $20 million in automation to be able to do it well. But not, once we started looking into it and really understanding it, that wasn't true at all, right? So like that was one person's perception of what they knew. So listen to advice, but don't internalize it. Like do your own homework and don't just like say, okay, well, like another great example. This is what I see all the time is, owners never want to give away any equity. They're worried about what's going to happen if you lose control of your business. But like, do you want a grape or do you want 100% of a grape or do you want 5% of a watermelon? Like, and not that we're interested in giving away 95% of our equity at all, but I'm just saying like, there's a lot of value that can come from leveraging other people's money and other people's knowledge. So not being too afraid of that, like being cautious about it. But,
I had a mentor once say, read everything you can and don't believe a stinking thing that you read. Yeah. And that's exactly what you're saying right there. The other thing I've found, and I've listened to you talk about it and on other podcasts, was where when you found that partner with the jeans, they then kind of like almost took you under their wing and showed you all the, like lots of different components of the business that you didn't previously have experience for. And they said, no, learn this. This is how this is done. How can you do it? Like that kind of thing. So it was almost like I think we always focus on, I mean, is that accurate, by the way?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I didn't imagine listening to that. But I think we focus on find mentorship as, somebody who's going to mentor you, Courtney, or somebody who's going to mentor me, Mark. But there's something to be said for like actual partnerships out there that are almost like a mentorship relationship where it's a large organization kind of almost mentoring a smaller organization.
Boy, that is $1 billion advice right there. That is, so ServPro, when we started doing business with them, we failed, not in a big way, like never in a big way, but we failed all the time in terms of like, so a great example, we would pull a customer's contents from their home, go ahead and start cleaning them for them. And then I had a customer who was like, you cannot ever do that again on my jobs ever. I'm not going to work with you until you have this in place. But you have to have a document that says that they authorize you to take these out of your home, and that they authorize you to start cleaning them. And then you also have to provide an invoice to the adjuster ahead of time and make sure they've seen it, so that there's no questions on this, because you're going to make me look bad if you get sued because of these things, right? So they basically, and it was hard knocks. Like, you don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear that negative feedback.
Especially when you're just trying to do the right thing.
Exactly. But you need that. Like, all the time, and even employees, right? We say that in our business, like, we're going to give you feedback, and you have to be 100% comfortable taking feedback to work here, because you're going to get it and you're going to get a lot of it. But you have to understand feedback is an investment in you. And for us, we had to look at it because with our clients, right? Like, so when in that job with that really large company, we kept hearing how, well, y'all are too small for us. You're too small time. You can't do this. You're too small. So it was a lot of this whole kind of you have to kind of roll your eyes internally and swallow your pride. And they think you're dumb, but they know you're not really dumb, but it just feels like at the moment they think you're dumb. You have to put your ego aside, right? Like, you can either have your ego and their money. It's one or the other, right? So, you have to put yourself in a position to be educated by your customer. And that comes from being very open to feedback. Like, you're not going to have that relationship if you're not seeking it out, and you're not asking them, how can I get better? What can I do differently? How did you feel this went? If you did it inside your own building, how would it have looked versus the way that we did it? Like, talk to me, tell me what's going on. And, we build relationships like that with all our clients. Because, it's just like a marriage, right? It's constant negotiation. Are you happy? What do we have to do to make sure you're happy? I'm not happy. Here's what you have to do to make sure I'm happy. That's the center of a relationship. And you just have to be available and open to it and willing to do something with it.
I can't imagine a better place than right there to conclude. That was, I think that's sage advice. And the next time we talk, I want to delve into how working with your significant other and how you guys make it work and all that kind of thing. But for now, I really, really appreciate you opening up and just telling the story.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was great.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Mark.